Okay, well,
Start recording.
1 second. Do one of you have?
So this has no.
A lockdown?
Okay, we're recording.
Okay. Yes, it is being recorded.
Okay, great. Welcome to the April 30th, 2025 Long Range Planning Committee meeting on Arlington's transportation future, proposed vision and goals. We are holding this hybrid public meeting, which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted on July 7th, 2022. Let's see. We have some commissioners participating in person and virtually, so members of the LRPC are participating both here and in person and through electronic means. This meeting is being recorded for our public records and will be posted on the Arlington County Commission YouTube page. Avoid sharing any personal information that you would not like to be made public. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will be run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link provided on the LRPC web pages, the county's event calendar, and the email notifications sent to LRPC ZOCO email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For our planning commissioners joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone, and please keep your phones and devices muted until you're called upon. Turn off the sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. I'll address when it's appropriate to turn it on in a moment. The Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active to serve two purposes: to assist participants who need technical support and for participants to pose brief clarifying questions to the larger audience. While the clarifying questions will be monitored, they will not be formally acknowledged. Staff may address those comments as appropriate. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion or inappropriate statements. Those who are planning to provide public comment may only do so at the end of this meeting, as the chat may not be used for that purpose. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony periods. And I'd also like to remind everyone in this room to speak up slowly and clearly, because the microphones are right up there. So that's where you sort of have to address so the virtual participants can understand what you're saying. Additional notes for LRPC members. If commissioners participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn your video feed on and raise the virtual hand in Teams. I or Sarah Steinberger, as well as staff, will monitor the video feeds. I don't think we have any commission members who've joined by phone.
No.
Okay. For members of the public who'd like to provide feedback and comment, unlike the Planning Commission's regular meetings, the LRPC agenda item is not a public hearing. Therefore, public comment is at LRPC Chair's discretion. We are exercising that discretion to allow those comments. We will call for speakers at the end of the meeting after the committee discussion has concluded. Members of the public attending virtually will speak first, followed by in-person attendees. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening. And in-person attendees, please add your name to the speaker list on the table here. If there's anybody, there's nobody here. Oh well. Virtual attendees, please indicate in the chat that you'd like to provide comment, and your name will be added to the list of speakers. Ms. Afonso Ahmed will acknowledge your request in the Teams chat. When virtual attendees are called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that's located on your meeting command bar. Moderator does not have the ability to unmute you, and you will be muted, though, when your time is concluded. As an alternative, public comment may also be provided on the public comment form posted on the LRPC webpage. And finally, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act requirements. And so, we are ready to move ahead, and we have a quorum.
We do, so do you want to go ahead?
Sure, we can
I
move,
know
yes.
Sarah is still
Right, let's
en route. Yeah.
go on ahead. I'd like to wrap it up by 9.
Yes.
Am I good to go?
Yep.
You're good to go.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for having us tonight. We're really excited to share the significant amount of work we have done through Arlington's Transportation Future to establish the proposed vision and goals that we'll be presenting this evening. I'm here tonight with Allison Bullock. She is the Transportation Planning Group Manager. I'm Kristen Culkins. I'm the project manager for Arlington's Transportation Future. And we do have a strong team that supports us that we gave the night off for tonight. But this has been a huge effort, not just from transportation staff, but interdepartmental working group and our advisory group that we're going to walk you through tonight to see kind of how we got to the proposed goals that we are hoping to bring to the board. This process has been a labor of public engagement. We have had 2 phases of public engagement to help us get to where we are today. That first phase of engagement started in the fall, where we had a significant number of pop-ups, listening sessions, open houses, an interactive comment mat, a questionnaire. We also, in that kind of first phase of engagement, were looking through about 43 precedent plans that the county, state, and regional transportation partners have created that have relevant transportation guidance and policy and values that are important for us to understand. We looked at peer transportation plans to kind of understand what we should be thinking about, what people who've done this recently have done. We established an advisory group that is representative of about 15 different committees and commissions within the county. I'm really disappointed Tony's not here tonight for me to give him a shout out, but Tony has been a great member of that advisory group representing the Planning Commission and your voice and your priority as far as transportation goes. And then we also have a number of different staff groups. We have an internal to transportation group where we bring a lot of different bureaus and groups together to talk. We also have an interdepartmental working group that we talk to all of the different departments and offices within the county that care about transportation, because transportation isn't something that happens in a vacuum. It affects so many different pieces of people's daily lives. We did all of that work, and we're going to talk about it more in detail through this presentation. That helped us establish the values that we have as a community, what our priorities are, which is how we created the draft vision and goals that we took to the community in our phase 2 engagement this winter in February and March, where we went back to the community and said, hey, does this look right? Is this reflective of what you shared? Are these values right? Do the goals get us where we need to go? We did that again through open houses, through pop-ups, through listening sessions, and through an online feedback form, and again through close coordination with our advisory group and our staff working groups. That process brought us to the proposed vision and goals we're sharing this evening. So the first thing that we really looked at as we started this process was to look at the county's current vision, that Arlington will be a diverse and inclusive world-class urban community with secure, attractive, residential and commercial neighborhoods where people unite to form a caring, learning, participating, sustainable community in which each person is important. That's the county's vision. The county has a lot of other precedent plans that are important to us. I mentioned we looked at about 43. Things like recent other elements of the comprehensive plan. We have area plans, we have sector plans, we have regional transportation plans that we looked at. And we started to see themes come through those varying plans: equity, environmental sustainability, the importance of travel choice, the important relationship between transportation and land use, the need for affordability, the fact that transportation provides economic opportunity. These values are things we recognize need to be reflected in the county's refreshed transportation plan. In reviewing those plans, we kind of created a number of other pieces of policy or opportunity or initiatives that we know are really kind of foundational and need to be integrated into the transportation plan. Our Vision Zero statement, our commitment to making the transportation network safe, the county's commitment to emission reductions, that our transportation network is a positive component of our environment. And we identified a number of different opportunities to think about as we refresh this transportation plan moving forward. We also looked at the current transportation plan. We did an in-depth review of the document. It was adopted in 2007, so we've got a lot of time that we spent with it. But we've also recognized that it has a number of pieces that we feel needs to be enhanced. It currently does not have the county's commitment to equity integrated into that plan. It talks about modal equity, but not the important commitment that the county has done with our commitment to racial equity. It really talks about the modes individually. It has an element for bikes. It has an element for transit. It has an element for curbside and parking, but it doesn't talk about how our network, how our corridors as a whole serve all of those different uses together. It has a siloed structure, and one of the things that we really recognized is for us to do the difficult transportation projects that we need to moving forward that really move the needle on access and equity, we need to talk about the network as a whole, about what happens building face to building face together instead of one element talking about bikes and another talking about vehicles. We need to talk about them together and what we're working towards as a community. We've got references to safety in the existing transportation plan, but not that same kind of lens that we take through Vision Zero. There's a lot of changes to transportation that have happened since the transportation plan was adopted. Capital bike share, Uber and Lyft, delivery services, if you think about Amazon or Uber Eats or Postmates, all of the different ways people get things delivered to their door now that put emphasis and demand on the curb space and on our right of way. We've got scooters. People travel in just different ways than they did almost 20 years ago. And we need a plan that's reflective of all of the different ways people want to get where they're going and making sure that our plan is helpful in providing kind of the overarching guidance and values that we consider future technologies with. This plan is not innovating and creating new ideas on how to use technology. We're creating a framework about how we make sure the values that we have as a community for transportation are expressed when we have new technologies come. So we also looked at other cities to see how they're doing this, to see kind of what lens they've taken, how they've addressed the recent kind of pressures that we feel as transportation planners. We looked at Move DC, a great local example, as well as Richmond, another Virginia jurisdiction that has a very strong commitment to equity in their transportation plan. We looked at San Diego, who has a really kind of interesting sustainability perspective in their plan, as well as a tracking system and a metrics kind of tracking system that we took a look at. And then from an international perspective, in another city that exists within kind of a capital region, we looked at Brussels, and they have some interesting ways that they looked at their modal networks that we learned from as we do this process. Kind of key takeaways from those plans as a whole are that every plan has sustainability, equity, and Vision Zero or safety as a fundamental component of those plans. This is all some of that background work we were doing to understand existing county values and priorities, what other best practices are doing. But one of the biggest foundations of this understanding of kind of what our current community values are, what transportation needs to be working towards, was phase one engagement. We launched on October 7th publicly and ran to November 17th. We had 42 days of public comment, and it was robust. We had 28 in-person events. 2 of those were open houses where people could come to us and talk to us about their transportation concerns, what they wanted to see in the future, what challenges they faced. We had 5 pop-up events where we just kind of showed up. One was at Water Park. We had 2 at farmers markets. We were out in the community. People who wouldn't otherwise come and comment on our transportation plan had the opportunity to tell us what they thought about transportation. We had done different canvassing events at high population and traffic areas where we talked to people and just told them about this plan happening. And then we had 11 listening sessions with community groups that we know aren't likely to come. We know they've been underrepresented in previous public engagement efforts. We went to them. We found a community partner where we could set up and talk to groups, Spanish-speaking groups. We talked to the Black Heritage Museum. We talked to the Independence Center. We talked to a group of high school students. We went to two senior living centers, one of them Culpeper Gardens, which is a committable, affordable senior living facility. We had just some fundamentally informative conversations. They were great. They were honestly my favorite component of all of this public engagement was listening to people and just having a dialogue to understand what they like about transportation and what they want to see change in the future, and kind of understanding the values or the goals we need to be working towards to see their specific need be addressed. Because a lot of what we did here through phase one were comments about, I want to be able to bike here, or I want to be able to walk here, or I want my bus to come on time. And those aren't goals, right? Goals are higher level, but we can take a lot of that detailed feedback that we heard and level it up to the values we're working towards. And that's what we did in phase one. We also had a questionnaire that had almost 2,500 responses. We had an interactive comment map where people could tell us kind of where they thought transportation should change or where they're having challenges. That had over 2,000 responses. And our webpage got over 10,000 hits. Phase one engagement was amazing. It gave us such a strong foundation to build on as we moved to create the vision and goals. Kind of the key takeaways from phase one engagement was that transportation today in Arlington is good. People recognize that we have a strong transportation network, but that doesn't mean it can't be better. People walk. On the questionnaire, it was the most common way people get around. Something like 83% of people walk today. But people want to be able to walk even more as a transportation option in the future. People take public transit today, they see it as a strength for our community, but they want to be able to take it more in the future. They want it to be kind of their go-to choice. Time and reliability are really top of mind for people. They need to be able to get where they're going and know that it's going to take them X amount of time and they're not going to be late. Everybody across all modes, be you walking, biking, or driving, taking the bus, riding metro, people want to be safe. They want to feel safe. That's something we heard fundamentally across all different types of engagement. And equitable access is something people prioritize. They recognize that that is something a strong transportation network needs to have. We took those values and we turned them into draft vision and goal statements that we'll go over in a minute. But we took those draft vision and goals and we shared them with the community in phase two that launched February 22nd. We launched at Feel the Heritage. It was a really fun 4-hour event where we were constantly talking to people and hearing kind of what they thought about transportation. And it ran to March 27th. It was slightly shorter this time because it wasn't the grand opening of our event or of our engagement, but we had 2 open houses, 4 pop-ups, 7 canvassings, and 11 listening sessions again. We went back to the same community groups to see if what they'd shared with us before was reflected in the vision and goals. And every group was able to say, we see what we told you last time in this vision and goal. It's reflective of what we were sharing with you. And that was a really strong way for us to know that we were going in the right direction, because these groups that don't have kind of a transportation wonk perspective could see the things that they were sharing with us expressed in the vision and goals. We had a little over 4,000 in-person interactions. The feedback was down significantly this time. We had 291 responses, but our webpage hits only dropped by about 50%. So we think a lot of people came to the website, saw what the vision and goals were, and were like, that seems on track. I don't need to fill out a feedback form and tell them that, like, thumbs up, you're doing okay. So from this phase of engagement, what we heard from people about what we shared was that the vision and goals are reflective of what people shared in phase one. We did hear from the community in a lot of different ways that we should integrate sustainability into the vision. In general, people supported the goals. The 6 goals that we went to the community with had strong support across our different engagement types. People really thought that when we talk about transportation, it should be about people, not the mode that they're taking, but how people feel using the network. People just don't want to be safe. They want to feel safe when they're using our transportation network. And again, kind of from all of the different ways that we heard from people, reliability was always something people told us that they care about when they take transportation. One of the things that we like to remind people about as we start talking about this vision and goals is that right now we're focused on the big picture. that vision that kind of pushes us to an aspirational future of where we want to be. It's broad, people see a lot out of it. And then the goals that are slightly more specific, but still higher level, that work us towards that vision. We're not yet kind of in the nitty or grittier components where we have things like policies. A lot of comments that we do hear from people are more policy centric, which we appreciate. We all kind of want to get to that detail right away. We got a lot of great feedback that we kind of put in a different bucket and said, we're coming back to that in the fall. That's great feedback. It's not a goal. It's not the vision. It's a policy that's going to get us there. So a lot of feedback that we did here, and I'll kind of make some notes about that as I present the draft vision and goals and our proposed vision and goals, or comments that we heard that we think are relevant. They're just not a vision or a goal statement. They are a policy that we use to work towards that vision or goal. And then we also anticipate having strategies that are more specific, that help us understand exactly how we work towards the policies, the vision, the goals. A really great example that, across the river, but something that we thought just shows kind of a great representation of how this all works together is Move DC, where they have 7 goals. They have 18 policies that work towards those goals, 41 strategies that kind of show them how they do that, and then tracking metrics to make sure that they're moving towards that on a biannual basis is what they report out on. So, high level, this is how we got here. We had phase 1 engagement, great community input, our foundation of the community values that we looked at from the 43 documents, the existing transportation plan, other jurisdictions plans. That helped us create the draft vision and goals we went to the community with in phase 2 engagement. We took that feedback, refined the vision and goals. We took that to our advisory group and our staff working groups. We heard more feedback. We made some more tweaks. And that is the representative proposed vision and goals that we would like to bring to the board that we're sharing with you tonight. We also did this with the Transportation Commission last Wednesday. And we heard some strong support for where we're heading. So the current draft vision, or not the current, sorry, the draft vision that we went to the community with as part of phase 2 engagement was Arlington's transportation network enables people of all backgrounds and abilities to move safely, comfortably, and seamlessly. Everybody can depend on a variety of transportation options to get them where they need to go when they need to be there. Arlington focuses on making travel a good experience for people, connecting them with nature, friends, family, and jobs. We heard some general positive feedback from the community that this is a good vision statement. Again, we heard that comment that sustainability should really be reflected in our vision statement. People felt that that list of places that you're going to at the end of the statement was a little bit limiting. Jobs isn't encompassing enough. People need to go to the school, they need to go to doctor's appointments, they need to, go get groceries. And we heard that the statement about our transportation network should be people focused. We heard that comment a lot from Tony, that we needed to make sure that as we're talking about transportation, it's not the network, it's what the network does for people. It's the people that are important. So we heard that, and we refined the vision statement, and we shared it with the advisory group and the working group. And after we did that, we didn't make any additional edits, so it's both our refined and our proposed vision statement that now reads, people of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities can move safely, comfortably, and seamlessly in Arlington. Everyone can rely on a variety of quality, sustainable transportation options to get them where they want to go when they need to be there without depending on a car. Arlington focuses on making travel an enjoyable experience for people, connecting them with nature, friends, family, and opportunities. So we made it a positive people-focused entry statement. We have quality and sustainable transportation options. People really thought that that was an important component of the types of options we were providing. We heard a lot that it's not just where people need to go, but people want places that they want to go, but they still need to be there at a specific time. So we changed need to want. And we heard from a lot of different people, advisory group members, comments on our feedback form, at open houses, at pop-ups, that a lot of people can't get anywhere except for by driving in Arlington. And people wanted to see bikes, buses, transit, walking, kind of enumerated in our vision statement all the ways they wanted to travel. And we really thought about the best way to kind of integrate that desire without having a list of like all of the modes. And it's really without having to depend on a car. That's what we're working towards. You can still drive if you want to, but you don't have to drive if you don't want to. Enjoyable was something people wanted to see. And then I have to give a shout out for opportunities to our high schoolers. They came up with that. They were like, it's not just jobs. And we went back and forth at that listening session and they said opportunities, and our little antenna staff went up and we're like, thank you, high schoolers. And he will get a shout out every single time I give this presentation because I love that that came from our teenagers. So we're doing the goals in alphabetical order because one goal is not any more important than the other. So in alphabetical order, our first draft goal was equitable and inclusive with a statement of create a welcoming, comfortable, and accessible transportation system for people of all backgrounds and abilities while working to eliminate historical disparities in transportation policy and investment. In general, we had strong support for this goal. We heard from some of those listening sessions where we went to historically disadvantaged communities that they appreciated that eliminating the historical disparities phrase because they feel that. They still feel it today and they appreciate that we're recognizing it. We did hear that affordable is an important component of an equitable transportation system. If you can't afford to use it, it's not equitable. And we also heard from both our teenagers and our older adults that ages is a bit different than abilities and backgrounds, and that we should consider integrating an age reference into this statement. So based off of this feedback, we modified it, and the refined goal and the proposed goal are the same, to create a welcoming, affordable, and accessible transportation system for people of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities, while working to eliminate historical disparities in transportation policy and investment. So you can see that we've integrated affordable and made the reference to ages as well as backgrounds and abilities in the proposed statement. For our second goal, we have livable. As drafted, it's create a transportation system that maintains and improves quality of life, affordability, economic vitality, physical health and mental well-being, and a sense of community. What we heard from the public was a general positive reaction to this. They were appreciative that we recognize that transportation plays a big component in people's daily lives. This was the one at listening sessions, people were able to see the tie back to the direct feedback that they gave us in a goal. We did hear at some of the listening sessions that it's not just about maintaining quality of life. A lot of people don't feel that they have a good quality of life today, so let's not maintain it, let's just focusing on making it better. And then we did hear from some kind of groups, especially a few advisory group representatives, that this goal felt more like a vision statement, but we really did have strong feedback from the community that this is a goal that people can see working towards. So following that round of feedback, we refined it, and we only took phrases out in that refinement to create a transportation system that improves quality of life, affordability, economic vitality, physical and mental well-being, and a sense of community. So we took out that maintain statement. And another thing we heard at a listening session that was kind of poignant is that it's not physical health and mental well-being. Physical and mental well-being says the same thing for you, and to some people, health has a negative connotation when you say you're not healthy, because there's a lot of kind of baggage that comes along with that term. We brought that to our interdepartmental working group and our advisory group, and we had a really kind of poignant point brought up at the advisory group that like, it's not just about what people do in the system, it's the system itself needs to be enjoyable. And we kind of had an aha moment when we heard that too, because we see this goal as we're putting policies about our transportation right-of-way being public space, where we can have a public art or kind of place streets type of policies. And it really felt like the right place to recognize this. So following the advisory group and the interdepartmental working group, we've proposed that this goal is now create a transportation system that provides enjoyable spaces and improves quality of life, affordability, economic vitality, physical and mental well-being, and a sense of community. Our third goal, as drafted, was connected. Provide an interconnected transportation network that is intuitive, dependable, and well-maintained, enabling people and goods to seamlessly reach their destinations. We had general positive impressions on this one, that people liked that we're recognizing the importance of a connected and interconnected network. People saw that the ability to transfer between modes in that term, something that people really like. The term connected didn't resonate with a number of people, and many said that reliable was a more appropriate goal to be working towards. And we heard from the feedback form, from open houses and listening sessions, that the destinations people are reaching, they're just not within the county. People work outside of the county, they recreate outside of the county, they have friends and family they visit, and we should be referencing how people travel outside of the county as well. So we refined the goal to provide an interconnected transportation network that is dependable, easy to use, and well-maintained, enabling people and goods to seamlessly reach their destinations in the county and region. When we went to the advisory group, it was still called Connected, but we heard again that Connected just wasn't sitting with people, so we changed the name to Reliable. We added in easy to use following the first round of public engagement. Intuitive just wasn't something that was landing with people. We had to explain the term a few too many times for us to think it was the right term to use. And then also referencing people's desire to go places that are outside of the county, we added the clause in the county and region. When we shared this with the advisory group and the interdepartmental working group, easy to use got pivoted again. Our advisory group is really, it's not just that it's easy, it should be convenient. We heard that and we integrated it. And then our disability advisory group commission member really said that we should do all people. It's a more encompassing, a more inclusive term to say all people, so people don't feel left out of the statement. So we did that and we integrated it, and it's now provide an interconnected transportation network that is dependable, convenient, and well-maintained, enabling all people and goods to seamlessly reach their destinations in the county and region. The next goal is safe. As drafted, it was prioritize safety for all people and eliminate transportation-related deaths and serious injuries. In general, people were like, yes, we need a safety goal. That's important. We can't say that's not important. Some people thought that this read just as car-centric, that we were only worried about safety in cars. And we heard a lot from many different people that it's not just about feeling safe or being safe when you're traveling. Statistically, you want to feel safe. You want to feel comfortable. It's like, okay, so I'm not going to get hit, but what if I don't feel like I'm not going to get hit when I'm riding my bike? If I don't feel that way, I'm not going to do that. So like, it's really important that we create a goal that's not just the statistical goal, but reflects how people feel when they're using the network. So we refined the goal to prioritize a safe and comfortable travel experience for all people and eliminate transportation-related deaths and serious injuries. I think this might have been the only goal at the advisor group where people didn't have comment. They didn't want to talk about it. It was just like, that's good. So it remains our proposed goal. The next is sustainable, and I think this might have had the most robust conversation at our advisory group meetings. When we drafted it, it read, develop a transportation system that moves more people without more traffic, reduces environmental impacts, supports climate resilience, and connects people with nature. Generally, people were happy to see a sustainability goal in our transportation system and reflecting on the fact that transportation is such a part of our environment. We heard people say that we should use less traffic instead of without more traffic to really emphasize that we want to see less driving. And we also heard from our interdepartmental working group that we should really take a look at the county's commitment to climate resilience and that to see kind of how we can modify it. We also heard some kind of more in the weeds comments about like we should have GHG goals, we should have specific targets built into this statement. And we agree that those GHG commitments are important. They're policies. They are policies that we will pull into this plan that will work towards this goal. But at a high level, we shouldn't have specific metrics within our goal statements. We took everything we heard from the first phase of public engagement and we modified the goal or refined it to say, develop a transportation system that moves more people with less traffic, minimizes overall environmental impacts, and advances climate protection, adaptation, and resilience. We brought that to our interdepartmental working group and our advisory group. And one of the comments we were hearing is that it shouldn't be talking about how we minimize what transportation does. We should have a positive statement about what this goal does for our community. And we heard that. So we modified it to develop a transportation system that moves more people with less traffic, supports a cleaner and greener environment, and advances climate protection, resilience, and adaptation. And that's our proposed goal statement. The last goal is transparent and accountable. As drafted, it was deliver and maintain a transportation network that addresses community priorities, acknowledges trade-offs, and builds public trust through exceptional stewardship of resources. In general, when we explained this goal, especially at listening sessions, people liked it. When we said what acknowledging trade-offs means, when we talk about the curb to curb or the building face to building face, and it's well, if we have 40 feet and we can only do these things, we have to think about the trade-offs between providing a bike lane or providing parking. But that wasn't something people understood without us explaining it. So we really realized that we needed to write a goal that didn't need staff to be there to let people know what we meant. And we also heard from some people that we should have a greater emphasis on tracking and modifying or sharing how decisions are made. And we agree that that's really important. And that is exactly what every single metric that we have in this plan is going to do. So we don't think it has to be in the goal statement because we know that's going to be a quarter of what the plan has eventually, our metrics about how we move towards everything. So we refined the goal. It's all bold because we just completely rewrote it. It's both our refined goal and our proposed goal. We have clearly prioritized and communicate competing demands within the transportation network and responsibly manage public resources to deliver and maintain an exceptional transportation system. One of the things that we heard from our staff was that acknowledges trade-offs when we were iteratively trying to rewrite this and figure out how to have it be plain language. They really appreciated that we were acknowledging that we can't do everything we want to do sometimes. And it's really important to have that in the goal statement so that we're transparent that we can't even at this point. So competing demands is where we landed because that makes sense. There's different things that compete for space within our right of way. So that's the vision statement, the 6 proposed goals. As I mentioned, we went to Transportation Commission as an information item last week. It landed very well. Every single commissioner was excited. They said, let's do this. Let's bring this to the board. We want the fall to come. I think it's maybe the first meeting I've ever been to where there was not a comment about an edit that should be made. And it went really well. We're here tonight with you to share these because we want you to know kind of how we got where we are so that the first time you're not really hearing it is when we come to you again in May or June and Transportation Commission as an action item. We want to bring these to the board either in June or July. We're hoping June, so that they can endorse them. They can buy in and say, yes, this is the vision. These are the goals that this transportation plan, this refreshed plan is working towards, so that when we get to the fall, when we start to build out the policies and strategies, the modal networks that are going to prioritize specific modes on specific streets, that we can point back to the board endorsed vision and goal statements so that we have a little bit of that North Star that we can say, look, this is our vision, these are our goals, and in order to get there, these are the type of policies we need. These are the priorities that we need on these streets so that we can come back, hopefully in the summer of 2026 with a complete document, vision, goals, policies, metrics, our modal networks, and new transportation plan map. I'm not even gonna call that one a refresh. That's gonna be new. And have the board adopt it, and it will be the transportation plan that we use moving forward. So with that, we really do appreciate you guys giving us the floor. I wasn't wrong, it was about a 40-minute presentation. And I will hand it back to Natasha, or?
Yeah, okay. Hi, thanks for getting started without me, apologies. that was comprehensive. Have we already done introductions and online folks too, or?
We did not do that.
And we have a new friend. Okay.
No, he's just.
No, we don't have a friend.
Again.
Okay.
I know, maybe he's had some trouble.
Got it. Why don't we go through and let's start with the online folks, and then we'll hit the room just to kind of go through who everyone is. First person online can come off mute. I just want to have a sense of who's in the group. Someone has to go first.
Just call it initials.
Yeah, let's just call in,
Okay.
is it Chris Latt?
Sure. Chris Blatt, you go first.
Hey there, Chris Latt, chair of the Arlington's Transportation Future Working Group. Just here to listen and hear what LRPC has to say on all the work we've been doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Give me more initials or
Jason
names. Great.
Schwartz.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jason Schwartz. So I think he's trying to.
Oh, public comment again. Okay, we will have time for public comment. I'll make sure we have that. Thank you. Anybody else do staff or anyone?
1 second. Something happened.
We lost our peoples.
Let's see, we have, that's Jason. So we have Vijay.
Kuravila? Are you here for public
Yes.
comment or
No, just listening.
just listening? Okay,
Okay.
welcome.
And then we have Jazir Naji.
Hi, hello. Public, just hearing in as well. But of course, I'm also an employee of Arlington County. I work under DHS. So just listening. It's my first time on the call. Thank you guys for having us.
Thanks. If you want to make public comment at the end. That's cool.
No,
you
no
don't
comment from me. Yeah, just listening in. Sorry.
Not a problem. I don't know if we've had other county staff just sort of sit in and then make public comment. I don't know if that's allowed or not. Someone would tell me. Anyone else who wants to introduce themselves? And we'll hit the room.
That's it.
Okay.
I think we covered everyone.
So I'm
Yeah.
Sarah Steinberger, current chair of the LRPC for this year, member of the Planning Commission, and to my left,
Jim Lantelli, Planning Commission.
Emily Peterson, Planning Commission.
Peter Robertson, Planning Commission.
you guys can reintroduce yourselves or not. You probably did in the starting presentation, so we're probably covered. Okay, great. So this is here as an informational item at this point. So I don't think we're going to do specific topics, as it were, from the presentation, but if anyone has
Yep.
feelings or things they would like to share, have at it.
Sure.
Jim went first, so Jim.
I was at
Jim, the floor is
Transportation
yours.
Commission, and they're right, Transportation Commission is very, very happy with this, and to emphasize that, the comments were, oh, everything we have contributed that we said we see up here in the new versions. So I thought that was really pretty good. We're really happy that it wasn't just as good, but we were heard. So thank you. That was great. I have a couple of minor things. Page 19, where and this is one of these things. No, page 20. No, I'm sorry. Page 21. The refined proposition for the vision. This is a personal thing that just annoys me, but it's up to you whether you want to do it. Variety of quality, sustainable transportation options. I would put high quality, because quality, it has to have a modifier. Is it low quality, high quality, mid quality? And we want high quality. I think that would help really emphasize it even more, that you're what you're trying to get at. So that's a recommendation, take it or not. The draft call sustainability 31. With the whole less traffic thing, moving from without more traffic to less traffic, I agree with that. I think it's great. I'm wondering whether the YIMBYs are going to seize upon that for any project. Oh, it's going to make more traffic, so we can't do it. More traffic, so we shouldn't do it. It's not part of the plan. It's not part of the plan. I'm sorry, the NIMBYs. The NIMBYs.
I was like,
Thank you. Very good.
It was very good point of view.
The NIMBYs will grab on that. And because we hear that on planning commission, every project we have, the surrounding neighbors, oh, it's going to generate too much traffic. It's going to generate too much traffic. I mean, to a civic association, it's like you press play and that's what you hear. And And I absolutely agree with getting out here because we have to somehow with more people as Arlington grows, which we expect it will over the coming life of this particular plan. We want traffic to be no more than it is and certainly less, but that doesn't mean we can't grow. We can grow and we should grow with less traffic. And if there's some way, and not necessarily in the goal, but somehow that comes out in the plan itself. So we make it really, we'll put that marker down that it's clear, yes, we can grow. Density does not mean more traffic. And we've demonstrated that in this county over the past 20 years. But I want that really to come out so we can counter those NIMBY arguments. So anyway, that's just, again, I'm not necessarily that we've changed this. I want, please be aware of that. But then we at Planning Commission, you will be able to use that to be able to counter those concerns.
So I don't know if this is almost more of a clarification question. You mentioned, I guess, earlier in the presentation that walking is still everyone's sort of like that's the standard that people use. I just curious, like, walking to, was the phrase like walking to where, or what is walking?
So intentionally, because transportation is always you get around. It's not just
Right.
how you get to work. It's not just. We had a questionnaire that was like, how do you get around the county? Like, what modes of transportation do you use on a somewhat regular basis? And it was everything. It wasn't a pick your top one. It was pick anything and everything that you use on a regular basis. And it's true though. Most people, at some point in the day, are walking as part of their transportation trip. It is a fundamental component.
So walking was like one of the most selected options
was
across
the
most. Okay, I just want to understand better what that meant. Okay, did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, first, thank you for doing all of this work. It seems so thorough, and you've already talked to a lot of great groups, and so a lot of the feedback that we're giving may already have been thought about and addressed, so feel free to point that out. Thank you to Tony Striner, Commissioner Striner, for the work he's been doing. So one thing I noticed is we do specifically call out supporting walking. We do specifically call out less driving. We don't talk specifically about like other multimodal transportation options like biking and scooters, and I didn't know if that should or could be more prominent as like, we want to be one of the best biking cities in the country. We want to, or, getting around on your feet or on non-motorized wheels or battery operated wheels or something like that. I didn't know if you thought about like characterizing some things as like a 15-minute city. Because that's like being able to get anywhere you need to go in 15 minutes, either by walking or biking or scooting. And so I find that a very attractive way of thinking about organizing cities. So that could be, I think we're probably a little too late in the process for that idea, but just wondered if you had thought about that. Also, you mentioned that you had looked at like 40 different guiding documents. I wondered if the Biophilic Cities Initiative was one of them and how that comes through. Okay, perfect. Slide 34, can we pull that up?
Slide 34 is next steps. Do you know
It
the
was
topic you're interested
Clearly
in?
prioritizing competing demands.
Yes.
Okay, so I was wondering how you clearly prioritize competing demands, like if you're like, we're talking about a sidewalk and a protected bike lane and parking and pickup drop off, like those are all theoretically close to being equal important. So how do we clearly prioritize when they're all important and it kind of is very contextual?
So that is all of what phase 3 is going to do. They can't all be important on the same corridor. And that is what this goal is getting at, is that when we build out our modal priorities on networks, there's going to be a corridor where we say we can't do parking and biking in a protected bike lane. They're both priorities, but we're clearly saying that the protected bike lane on this corridor is the priority. We are going to rank the priorities. Okay. So like on a different corridor, if we have somewhere that people want enhanced transit and they want protected bike facilities, but we know the space we have, we're going to be honest and say we can't do both.
Okay.
And that we are going to prioritize the bus on this corridor and bikes on this corridor, and we're going to look at from a network perspective as well. But that's the challenge, is that everything can't be the priority. We really do have to say that one is like, gosh, I almost made a Lord of the Rings reference. There has to be, there has to be a top priority, and the other things are still important, but we're clearly going to say that on Fairfax Drive, protected bike lanes are more important than, say, if we had space shuttles, because I'm not going to say the other thing that we could prioritize instead. That's what we mean here, is that we are going to be clear that this is the priority on a facility.
And that prioritization will have like the bike network overlay so that we can see,
Yep.
see, look, we've got the plans and here's where the priority streets will be. Okay, and then I'm wondering, kind of to Jim's point, where like people can say, oh, well, see, that's not a priority. So if we get to an SPRC and we've said like, this isn't a priority bike lane, but like, oh, well, if, you know, we had a more of a setback, we could fit it. And like, is there room for negotiation there? Like when we're talking with a developer and saying, you know, I mean, I know we'll have our bike network, but maybe there are areas where like, it's like there's the must-have bike network and then maybe like a nice-to-have bike network.
Yeah. So we also plan on creating a whole section within this refresh transportation plan that speaks to development and how we use this plan in development applications and what it means. We're also not being treatment specific on our priority networks, because we know that we can't say that a specific corridor can accommodate protected bike lanes everywhere. Like, it may just not happen. It may be buffered in spots. It may be that we do the best we can do for that mode if it's the priority. But we know that as planners, we can't get into the fine grained details of what that specific treatment is at a countywide level with this document if we want it to be adopted in any sort of like reasonable time frame. So what we're doing is we're going to be creating these modal networks that have the priority, and then that priority is going to have a suite of treatments that come along with it. And we're going to do hierarchies. It's not just going to be that this mode is the only mode that's important. Transit's number one, and then maybe biking's number two. So if we can do both, we're going to do both. But because of that whole fact that there's so many places that we know something's going to have to give when we come in and do capital projects, we want to know when we have these community dialogues that like, no, we looked at the network. We have to do right by the bus here. And at another location, it could be that, you know, parking's actually really important because it's a high pickup drop-off area. And someone may really want a bike lane on that street. And we're going to say, no, we looked at the network. There's a bike lane a block over. We really need Pudo here. And that's what we need to focus on doing right, so that we've had this kind of holistic conversation here. It doesn't mean that things won't still kind of have to get figured out in site plan, because they always do, because every site plan is different, every context is different. This will just be the overarching policy guidance that you can look back at and say, this was our North Star. This is what we have to do well. And then we can figure everything else out after that.
Yeah, we have a link with the busway, which is city, that we're not going to put a bike lane on, you know, where the new street where the bus lane is now being put in. It was, sorry, we can't do it. The busway is the first priority. And traffic still has to go through, so that's number 2. Wide sidewalks are necessary, that's number 3. And it's the bikeway that we're going to not do because we can do one.
Yep.
So that was the example, I guess, of how we parsed out those priorities.
Yep. And that's such a good example kind of the thought process that we'll go through for these modal networks.
Rather than having to go through it at a project by project basis and every time kind of litigating that conversation and what those priorities should be and what the hierarchy should be, we'll have that overarching guidance that thinks about how do all the networks work together, where do they overlap, and then where they overlap, how do we prioritize?
And I think this is already addressed, but I think today there was something about like the air quality in Arlington and the region is really bad. And so that's probably already addressed in your sustainability goal, but
It'll
it'd
help
be
policy.
nice to improve air quality for all of us.
And we had a conversation like, well, what is air quality? And it's like, well, then do we put water quality? Or do we put sewer? Like, we're like, this is the goal, and then we have policies. I'm muted.
Okay.
Okay.
It's weird because we haven't touched anything. Do you want to make sure yours?
Did somebody come off mute?
No,
I think it's us.
It's us.
We're hearing ourselves.
Well, maybe
Yeah, Natasha, it's you.
it's me.
Yeah.
You haven't touched anything.
You were the one
Well, you know
making.
what, I can log off if one of you can check the chat just to make sure.
Yeah. I can watch the chat.
You wanna check now? What,
I was checking to see if I could see
see,
it.
I'm out. So it's- Let's see that. That seems better.
Can you guys hear us now?
We
Great.
can hear you now.
So something got clicked.
And I'm not in the meeting on my phone.
It's okay.
Henley, did you have?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yes, please, thank you.
Taking this much community feedback, I know is to some extent drafting by committee, which is always an imperfect way to do these things. But I just had some observations which we'll probably ignore, and that's okay. The vision slide where the comment was, schools, doctors, groceries leaves a lot of things out. I agree with that, and I think it still leaves a lot of things out, and I just encourage you to think about it. I couldn't come up with anything better than community or everyday support services or something that captures that concern, which I think is legitimate. On the proposed livable goal, I wondered whether it's, I understand ways that we can agree that an enhanced transportation system improves an individual or community's quality of life. But I wondered whether it's sort of imposing too much on a transportation system to expect it to improve quality of life, and do we expect a sort of continuing improvement of quality of life? If so, it worries me about what that implies about resources and everything else. I would be comfortable with a goal on that one that leaves improving the quality of life out of it. Because I think the rest of it is quite good, and that's true of all of these. On livable, I agree that it's probably still too general and too much like a vision statement, and we might want to look at that again. Reliable, to me, connected was a better description of that one than reliable. You could have a very small system that's very reliable and that is not connected, and it's of not much use to anybody. A connected system, that seems to me is more important than that term reliable for Arlington County, though I certainly want a reliable connected system. And then finally, safe. Yeah, of course, everybody wants a safe system. I'm not sure how comfortable got put in there too. I'd rather be safe than comfortable. I'm more concerned about that. And I don't think comfort achieves safety. You know, it's safe from other ways or isn't. Those are my comments.
I think that it comfortable isn't just like my seat feels nice. I think comfortable is that like, or can be kind of emotionally like I feel able to relax, able to sort of be at peace in what I am. And I think that does go to safety. Because when people are comfortable, I think they're more likely to feel safe and vice versa. If you're safe, you're more likely to feel comfortable. So I didn't have that concern. I agree with everything else you said. I didn't have that concern about comfortable.
Well, then I think maybe a different word other than comfortable that conveys what you just said is perhaps preferable, but again.
Well, because I think when people think of transportation and comfort, they think of like car seats and like, is my car seat comfortable? Or is like my bus seat comfortable? And so like, I think there is that sort of element, but I think comfortable, I don't know, but what I'm coming up with doesn't worry better, like at peace, serene,
No, this
relaxed.
isn't our problem, Madam Chair. This is their problem.
Yeah, but I like to help people solve problems.
But the point you're trying to get at is that you feel safe as well as you are
Right.
safe.
Yes, it's the emotional feeling of safety as well as the physical feeling of safety.
And this is what people told us most of the time. They want to be
Yeah.
comfortable. And like we heard it articulated through a number of conversations with people that like it's not just about being safe, I want to feel safe. It was like I want to feel safe, I want to feel comfortable. And like we didn't want to say prioritize a network that is safe and feels safe because that sounds redundant. But a lot of people really were like, if I feel safe, I'm comfortable.
Right.
If I don't feel safe, I'm not comfortable. And like it's the most straightforward way.
Would this also be like making sure we have bus shelters
Yes.
at all bus
Yes.
stops and making sure they're not positioned in a way where you have cars getting off an on ramp or an off ramp at like 50 miles an hour and the bus stop is right in front of it, and if somebody forgets to turn.
Yep.
Okay.
And shade and kind of all those aspects that make a trip desirable beyond just safe from crashes.
Any other comments or feedback immediately from the room? I think everyone we heard from online is either just listening or actually, Commissioner, sorry. I think that was public comment though,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yes.
So Commissioner Slatt, did you have anything you? There he's not. Sorry, wait, what?
As your group chair slide.
Advisory, sorry, Chris Slatt, do you have anything you wanted to give in terms of more active feedback? Or
Nope, I'm just here to listen.
just here to listen. All right.
I've had lots of time to provide feedback.
No, that's fine. I'm good with that. Commissioner Peterson? Yeah.
Have you thought about, and is this already included, something about like county culture, about like supporting all the different multimodal transportation options? There have been several times when I have shown up at a county event and I'll pull up and I'll be like, where's the bike parking? And everyone's like, oh, we forgot about that. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you can go around there. Can you hook up to that fence? So maybe something about like, you know, culture of the organization, everybody having buy-in and knowing how to answer those questions.
The fall.
Yeah, I could see that nesting under transparent and accountable as part of the accountable of all county staff who are trained on this and understand how what's in the transportation plan translates to what they're doing on the ground, even if they're not a transportation employee necessarily.
These are all things we remember to raise in the fall.
We're also taking notes, so yeah, we'll carry this forward.
Okay. If that is the extent of the feedback in the room, looking at my notes one more time. I think that was covered. I think we'll go to public comment. I think we had 2 people.
Jason Schwartz and Vijay.
Okay, Jason Schwartz, you're up. I'm feeling generous. You can have 3 minutes. You don't have to use all the 3 minutes, but you can have them.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay, great presentation. Just some quick things I want to say. I really like the vision about not having to depend on a car. Arlington's a small area, everywhere should be accessible non-car. I love the connectivity. You know, all of Arlington should be connected very easily, not just east-west, but north to south. I love the sustainable goal, but there really needs to be, I think, talk about mode shift. You know, mode shift is really important to advance climate goals. Also, there's nothing insustainable about land use. You know, land use and sustainability go hand in hand. You know, with the transportation network, it really depends on what type of housing is there. You know, the smaller the homes we see, the more the demand there is for less parking spaces. So if we want to really do mode shift and get these car-free, car-light households, we need smaller homes. That's really important. And then Arlington across the board needs the density to support the sustainable mode. You know, we see with our bike share network, there's huge gaps, and that's due to low density because Capital Bike Share says, you know what, these areas are not worthy of a bike share station. I love the talk about competing demands to acknowledge the trade-offs. That really needs to focus on equity lens, focusing on people who, you know, do not have the money to own a $1,000 plus a month car to get around, in addition to the high whatever home price that there is. And I think another thing too with this plan is I think transformative should really be used. A lot of transportation around the world, you know, world class, you know, they've been able to do transformative changes in very, very short periods of time. And that is possible in Arlington. And we need to acknowledge that. You know, Hoboken they've eliminated traffic deaths. They decided they're going to do aggressive daylighting and everything. And boom, they have nothing. And they're 1 square mile, 60,000 people, no deaths. New York City, you know, they did congestion pricing overnight, game changer, safety, traffic, all that sort of thing. City of London, 1 square mile again. They saw cycling counts up 50% since 2022, from 89,000 a day to 139,000 a day. Obviously, Arlington is not going to see that number, but this is what world-class transportation does. They're able to, within just even matters of months, to really instantaneously improve the networks for everyone. And then lastly, just focusing on accountability, I think that, you know, we really got to have the metrics there to be accountable to what we're putting in the plan. You know, if we're world-class, we need world-class timeliness and implementation. Not just, you know, oh yeah, we want to be, you know, Vision Zero, and then we're, you know, like other jurisdictions we see, they say they're going to do Vision Zero and they're trending in the wrong direction. Versus like Hoboken, they said everywhere in our 1 square mile city is going to be Vision Zero, and they did it. And, you know, putting down bollards, all that sort of thing. They don't need super expensive things to get there. They start small and then build up. So that's just my comment. But overall, really great, and hope to see a transformative vision and goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Second commenter is
Vijay Uruvilla. So Vijay?
BJ, but you know, I was mostly just here to listen, but I also appreciate the emphasis on non-car modes.
Thank you. Alrighty, so it looks like we have the next step slide back up here. So we just had where are we? Spring 2025, there you are, priorities. So we're looking to, I think you said, get this in front of the Planning Commission as an informational item. Next?
Action.
Action item, okay, and that would be June, July? Okay?
May, June.
June, okay. And then, I thought I said June, July for something.
For the board.
That would be for the board, okay. And then June, July to the board. All right, so we look forward to the presentation potentially next month or the following month. Great. Thank you, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So of the cities that you compared us to, in particular Brussels, because I was just there, what did you see that those other cities are doing